we are fulfilling some of what Christ is calling us to do. But for some of us, God has placed in our hearts a calling to connect either with family members or with people who find themselves in jail or in prison. I don't want to soft pedal this as somehow just financial help, because nothing replaces one-to-one care and support of family members and of individuals who are incarcerated. Because Christ says, when you do it, when you care about the needs of people, you're doing it for me. You're doing it to me. And here at Grace, we certainly have people who cross a spectrum of either having ourselves been in jail or ourselves been in prison, or we have family members in jail or in prison, or we have been affected in some way as families by people who are in jail or in prison. I'm aware of some of those stories. The point being, friends, people are people. And though we seek justice in our culture, justice isn't always so easy for us to define or understand. Christ doesn't call us to play a part in that other than the fact to be there one for another. So let us discern that. I received a card from Carpenter's Place this week, and that card identifies a huge thank you to the people of Grace. For Grace Race, for Carpenter's Place, for Kim Donovan and her team of people from Grace that helped to provide food and meals. Together also with our partner Church GPS, who does likewise at Carpenter's Place. Great appreciation. And I thank God for the vision and the work and ministry of a place like Carpenter's Place. They're making a significant difference. And one of the neat things is, as we partner with other not-for-profits, as we partner together with other congregations in and through Carpenter's Place, we don't have to do it alone. Isn't that great? Somebody else had that vision. But before we leave, I was in prison, and you visited me. I simply want to say, what is Christ placing on your heart? My times with Millie in the county jail, my times with Bob at our state correctional facility in New York were some of the most significant and life-changing conversations that I've had in my life. So don't turn a deaf ear to the ways in which God leads and guides and directs you. And then helping hands, getting our hands dirty. Kathy, and I could use a number of individuals. Kathy was also on the periphery of our parish. She had a pseudo-tumor. It meant there was really no tumor there, but it functioned like a tumor in her brain. And anytime there was barometric change, and in upstate New York, barometric change is pretty constant. Whenever that would happen, she would find the pressure in her brain, shrinking her brain, putting pressure on her head, and it would be like a severe, severe migraine. And if you've had a migraine like that, you know, and you pull the drapes and you put your head under the pillow and you wish someone would put a vise on your head and squeeze it because it just hurts and you don't know what else to do. That's what would happen to Kathy. And she was immobilized. She couldn't get out of bed. Therefore, she couldn't clean, she couldn't cook. And people, it's amazing how people surround themselves and are willing to share of themselves and help out, to do cleaning, to do cooking, to befriend, to simply be there. If you've been around people who are dealing with long-term illness in families, you know how hard and stressful it gets. If you're sitting in hospitals or if you're traveling here and there, friends, Christ says that when we care for those who are sick, didn't say heal them, didn't even say pray for them, but care for the needs of people who are sick, their families. You're doing it unto me. What Christ is really cutting across the grain and saying in our scriptures for today is being compassionate to those that Christ puts on your scope. Somebody in the holiday seasons you know who's dealing with grief. They've lost a loved one. We've had some here. Grace, you've certainly known people. Some of you have been touched by grief and loss. Thanksgiving's around the corner. Family comes together. You lose a spouse, you lose a child, you lose a grandchild. Thanksgiving isn't fun. And right around the corner is Christmas for some families. And if you're dealing with illness or you're dealing with grief, if you're dealing with somebody who's far removed, a family that's gone through a divorce and it's been messy, you see, when we sit, when we listen, when we demonstrate compassion, when we connect with another human being, that's what Christ says sheep activity is all about. It's about eyes that can see the possibilities and be sensitive enough. And I know some of you have that kind of sensitivity way more than I have, where you think about who might be hurting today as we get close to Thanksgiving. And what might I do to just let them know that I'm thinking of them, that I'm caring for them. A bunch of you who have that kind of compassionate heart, already, these names are coming up on your screen, aren't they? They're like credits on a movie. They're just kind of running down there. Those of you who are insensitive like me find this a little more challenging to think that way, all right? So we need a nudge and a reminder, think about so-and-so, that they might be hurting. But it's this what Christ is driving at as we work our way through it. Finally, welcoming strangers. This is probably a word to us as a community, as a church. As my wife and I came visiting Grace for a couple of times before we thought about putting our name in for the interim position, and we had visited a number of churches in our lifetime, just like you have. And some of those churches, you could walk in and the barometric pressure was ice. It was just, oh boy, are they friendly here? Yippee! If you wanted to be anonymous, that was the church to go to. And I could pull a variety of names out, but I must say that one of the people who sought us out like a beagle was Carol and Dan Jansen. We just came into the church, bam, Carol was on us, smiling and making us, they weren't like licking our face like a beagle, all right? But they were just there and friendly, and their tails wagged some, if you can imagine a beagle. And there were others, but I just cite them as an example of people who are just kind. When you're a stranger, when you're a new person coming in to visit, nobody stands alone. And I encourage us that we're large enough as a congregation, there's plenty of folk as you look around the room that you don't know, that we be sensitive to strangers. We just try to be helpful. Think of this like your house. And I would hope that if you came to my house, I wouldn't expect you to figure out where's the bathroom, where do we put our coat, what's the process here. We try to help you as you do for us when we enter your homes. And this is our home. And as people come in, let's be sensitive to the needs that people might have, and most certainly to welcome them and greet them. And not wait for official greeters to do all the greeting, but to look around the room. And it might be a great opportunity for us to build some bridges to some new relationships here at Grace. Christ says, sheep are those who reach across and welcome and visit and demonstrate compassion. Grace has many of these capacities, friend, but like anything else, there's always room for us to raise that bar, especially as we come into Christmas and Thanksgiving. So as people come to mind, maybe you become the new unofficial welcome wagon in your neighborhood as new people move into your apartment complex, into your duplex, into your neighborhood. And here at Grace, we do likewise. And may we be responsive to the needs of people. As you did it to the least of these, you did it to me, Jesus said. Thanks be to God that we serve a gracious God who cuts us some slack when we fail, huh? And may God give us some encouragement to continue to be his hands, feet, and voice in the world.